Hello again, people, and welcome to the Sports Lounge. We are going to talk baseball for once.
I think we should.
One time,
just once. Just this one time.
Oh, all right. Let's talk about the corruption in the NCAA every week, week in and week out. How about we talk about some real sports?
Real sports.
Let's get down
Underwater
into it. Juicy stuff.
Are we allowed to say real sports without getting Brian Gumbel's permission?
Real sports with Channel 2.
There we go.
Hildebrand, over there. Marcus Traxler, Drew Amon. You're a big baseball guy.
Well, yeah.
Bigger than I am.
I think it's a good time of year. I think I might be one of the few who maybe puts the MLB playoffs on a pedestal parallel to the NFL.
The National.
During this part of the year. So
Okay.
I guess therefore baseball
And why
guy.
exactly do you do that?
Why exactly do I do? I've never been asked that before. It's just a matter
Okay.
of. It's just a matter of if you like the sport, you follow the sport, and not necessarily. It doesn't really matter what time of year it is. So just because NFL is going on, just because there's NCAA football, doesn't mean I'm going to like Major League Baseball any less. And and the Twins being, long gone from the
Gone
playoff
with the
race,
wind.
I'm still interested in it. So I guess that's my sort of weird explanation.
Okay.
My explanation is the complete opposite of that. In fact, I quit with baseball
Once the Twins
were out. And now I'll pick them back up once the playoff starts. Because I don't care about the other 22 teams that don't make the playoffs now. I only care about the 8 teams that are going to make it, and that's the extent of it.
Agreed.
Right or wrong, that's the way I feel. So
Agreed, except scratch Twins, put in White Sox, and scratch the I care about the playoffs too.
All right.
I mean, it's a little bit interesting. We'll see what happens. It could be fun.
If the Cardinals and Braves are in a playoff, you bet I'll watch that. But right now, I'm not interested in. Even though it could be a day away, I don't feel it right now.
Or it could be right on. It could be on right now.
Right. Or it could have already.
Or it did happen.
Yeah.
One of those 3 options will happen.
Joys of not live television.
Yes. Oh, you gave away our secret. We do. The show's on like 10 times, and we do it live each time. That's what they don't know.
Exactly.
It
But
feels like it actually.
when you see us on the TV screen, we're in front of TV cameras at that moment.
At that moment.
It's hard to
yes.
get those cuts at the exact same time every single show.
It's-
That's where he comes
all,
in.
that's all Dustin back
does a
there.
great
Harder
job.
than people give it credit for.
Yep. 2-3 weeks ago, it looked like everything was pretty much sewn up. You had the Braves, they were going to be the wild card. You had the Red Sox, they had it all wrapped up. But oh, wouldn't you know, not 1 but 2 races are coming down to the final day. I'm not going to say, it's fixed at all, but it makes things very interesting.
Well, I like the drama. There's nothing better than a great September collapse.
I think a good Subway sandwich.
Subway. I would put. In recent years.
Oh, you like the collapse better than the chase.
Yeah. Well, a foot long with a couple cookies. I prefer that. The Red Sox collapse of this year, 9 games back or 9 games in front. I think what was it? It might have been a month ago. It's the steady like downfall into just a collapse that almost is unrivaled. And then you have Detroit of a couple years ago, who also had a big lead on the Twins. And the Twins came back, game 163. Swept the rug out from under them. So this
Best
is
baseball
good.
game I've ever seen.
One of the best I've ever seen too. That extra innings had everything, all the elements of a classic game, and so it's just me. I like a September drama. I like the end of the year pennant chase. We're in the thick of it right now. It's kind of ignored. Seems like to me it has, because we'll not get into what ESPN's agenda is, but. I feel like it's a little bit ignored. It won't be if there's a Red Sox play-in game, but I think it's a great time of the year, and this kind of seems like it's a little under the rug right now.
Well, I think we know that maybe ESPN has turned off baseball because we haven't seen John Kruk in like 4 months.
I'm getting a little
point.
worried about him.
I am too. To Travis's point about the playoffs being fixed, do you think they would be fixed? Do you think that Major League Baseball would want a Nick Punto-led Cardinals team to make the playoffs?
Over Atlanta?
Nick Punto leads the Cardinals?
Is he even playing?
He has an OPS of like 780,
I think they would.
which is
They all
uncharacteristically high.
obviously they want Boston in over Tampa Bay 100%.
Yeah.
The Cardinals have a better tradition than the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves would, spice things up a bit. They've improved in recent years. But I think they would, if they had a choice, they would like to see St. Louis in their Pujols. I think the Braves don't have as many stars that people know, like the Cardinals do.
I'll say this there's one thing I really like about baseball playoffs compared to the other sports, is that it truly is exclusive, where you've got the 3 division winners in each league and then the 1 wild card team. And with only 1 wild card team, obviously they're going to be pretty talented. And so it actually means something when you make the playoffs, where, with NFL it means something too, but they have an extra wild card team in each conference. The NBA and the NHL, when over half the teams make the playoffs and teams with losing records make it every year, I guess it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Well,
Where in baseball, making the play, you could get swept in the first round, and it's still a big deal that you just made the playoffs in the first place because you actually literally accomplished something.
And they play some games on back-to-back days.
What do they do?
It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable concept.
It's like they can get out of bed the next day.
Yeah, basically.
And there's a great amount of pressure in baseball's first round to get 1-2 wins right away with your best pitchers. The Twins, not an example of that, getting wins in New York 2 times in Game 1 and then finding a way to.
Oh. What's the current streak? 9, 10, 11?
I'm glad I brought it up.
Yeah,
Good.
Thank you.
But, look at a team like Detroit obviously relies on Justin Verlander. If he gets them a win in Game 1, they're that much closer. They can bring him back. He's integral to them winning a short series, 5 games, because he could be worth 2 wins.
The cool thing about, this postseason, I look at the American League, and there's going to be, well, I guess it's not defined yet, but okay, it's a 5-team race.
Yep.
There's only going to be 4 in. I could see each of these 5 teams making the World Series, and then from there anything can happen. I honestly can. The Yankees have the power, and the Red Sox have the pitching. They're struggling right now, but they have the pitching. They have guys like Adrian Gonzalez, Jacoby Ellsbury. You have Detroit with Verlander and Miguel Cabrera. You have Tampa, who just finds ways to win. They have superstars in Evan Longoria. James Shields had a Cy Young caliber year.
The new kid they just called up?
The Texas Rangers, nobody even talks about Matt Moore, with the Rays. You talk about the Texas Rangers, who nobody talks about as far. This is a team that made the World Series last year, and they got C.J. Wilson, another ace with a Cy Young worthy year, and that lineup is potent. That bullpen with Neftali Feliz.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
Everybody.
Feliz Navidad and Darren Oliver. It's good bullpen. I think there's 5 teams in the American League I think could win World Series, and that's compelling to me. The National League, everyone's going to talk about the Phillies, justifiably so, but I like teams like Atlanta too, despite kind of their little depression in the last couple of weeks. But I think it's more wide open than it has been in years past.
Some people don't like baseball because too many games, it takes forever. And Charlie, you have a plan to fix that. But also that is
it was the spur of the moment on the radio last night.
But some people may be in favor of that. But I think it's still amazing to me, especially in recent years, you've seen so many 1-game playoffs. When they played for 6 months, they've played 162 games, that they can still be tied after all those many games. Twins happened back-to-back years. You had the Rockies and the Padres a few years ago. You may have 1 this year, you may have 2, you may have none. So, and to talk about the wild card races, because that's the only thing that's undecided now, baseball wants to, in a couple years, add another wild card team, which will happen. And they do this to create excitement, right? To have more teams in the race, right? Is that reasonable?
That's why they want to do it, yeah.
But if you were to have that happen this year, well, then it doesn't really matter who gets the first wild card spot, who gets the second. It would probably just be home field advantage.
I agree. I think it's sort of a counterintuitive measure that ends up taking away some of that end-of-year energy as far as teams racing to get that last spot. Now, you might just have a scenario where it just kind of goes down a notch, where you have that 5th wild card team and that 6th team chasing to get that 5th spot. That could happen too. So it might not completely eradicate the end of season drama, but I think it does hurt it. I haven't really been too big of a proponent of expanding the playoffs, really.
And it would be a one-game playoff between those two wild card teams.
To get to the ALDS, I haven't thought about it in depth really, but I don't really like it, and I'm not even really would consider myself a traditionalist when it comes to Major League Baseball. I don't see how that really improves the playoffs in full.
Because rarely do you see more than two teams going for one spot. Rarely are there three teams, for one spot. Usually it's just one and two teams.
I think the only way you can sell me on the 5 teams per league making the playoffs is if they do what they talked about earlier this summer and just go 2 15-team leagues. And it's the top 5 make it, and everybody else is out.
Or you give the number 1 seed a bye or something.
I don't like that because...
you could.
I think that's an unfair advantage, especially when the playoff games are going to be closely spaced.
And then you'd have, that wouldn't work because you'd have 3 teams at the end of that anyway. So.
Right.
And part of the cachet of the playoffs is, starting pitchers pitching on 3 days rest, 4 days rest. You give a Major League Baseball team a week to 10 days. People are gonna complain about, well, these guys, their arms are ready to go. They're all greased up, ready to hurl some baseballs. I have no idea why I even said that. That was ridiculous.
But playing off of Charlie's exclusivity.
Exclusivation.
Feliz Navidad.
Playing off of that, I think 4 teams per league is enough.
I think it's good.
Because
rarely are there.
I think the 2 teams per league is pretty good too.
No.
I know why they have the division series.
Because rarely are there. Besides, is there another team in the American League above 500 besides Tampa Bay and Boston?
There are a couple. I think Toronto had a winning season.
They're right on the
Cleveland
cusp.
Still above 500?
They're right there, and those are not playoff teams. I don't consider Toronto
And
or
Chicago
Cleveland.
was battling for second in the Central.
Chicago, I think, was a few games under right now, but right around a winning season. Yeah.
You look at the NBA. There's some teams that get in under 500. In baseball, that never happens.
Yeah, not just under, sometimes like 10 or 15 games under 500.
Some team with 38 wins.
You got to aim for 86, 87 plus. You got to have a winning year, and I like that part about baseball.
That's what the playoffs are supposed to be the best teams. That's what literally makes it great is that you have the best teams, and when you start adding more, you can get more excitement. You can get upsets and stuff like that. That's fun and entertaining to watch, but it doesn't keep the kind of, the magic, I guess, to use a stupid word to describe it, but the magic kind of wow, we truly did something that is special that we can look back on.
You're making me cry, Charlie. You're making me cry.
Abracadabra.
And people haven't watched the World Series in droves for a while.
That's the sloppity.
People haven't watched the World Series in droves for a while, so clearly Major League Baseball is going to look to spice it up somehow.
Here's an odd question. Would you be in favor of a weekend day game in the World Series?
A weekend day game?
Probably a Saturday.
I would be.
You wouldn't want to put it, maybe you want to put it on a 3:15 NFL Sunday?
No, I say.
Or Saturday?
I say, yeah, I would be completely for a Saturday, kick it off right at noon. I'd be all for that. I'm for day games.
Double headers in the World Series. No.
Double headers. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
That would be insanity.
Don't teams stand to benefit from day games, like Saturday day games, Sunday day game in the World Series, rest-wise? I kind of think you're a little bit better off because then instead of getting home in your bed at 11:30 at night, maybe later.
Lucky if you're on the East Coast, game started at 8:15 out there. You're lucky to get
I think
to be in the car by midnight if you're a player.
If you're going to move to bigger playoffs, all this, if you want to make the traditionalists happy, you can have one day game in the World Series.
You can do it, but if you're baseball and you're trying to get ratings, though, I don't know if competing against football on Saturday or Sunday is a great idea.
And who airs the World Series right now?
Fox.
Who airs NFC football games?
Fox.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I go. Maybe you book.
What did you run over on your way home from work?
Fox. Maybe you go. That's why you go. Maybe a 3:15, 4 o'clock start.
Yeah,
you parlay those NFL guys into baseball.
They do it for the U.S. Open. Week 1 on CBS.
Coming up next, we're going to do 2 baseball segments. Believe it or not, we're going to look at the AL and NL awards, MVP, Cy Youngs, all that.
Double your
Coming up
pleasure.
next here on the Sports Lounge. Now we're going to look at the National League Cy Young and MVP award races. First, MVP of the National League. Same thing with the American League. Nobody really stands out. There's no clear-cut front runner in the National League. I know where I'm going, but where are you going?
It's a two-man race as far as I'm concerned. It's either Ryan Braun, Milwaukee Brewers, or Matt Kemp,
Those are the names I have, right?
the Dodgers outfielder, the sensational, toolsy guy who will win the batting title, will fall short in home runs and RBIs to complete the Triple Crown.
Kemp?
Matt Kemp, yeah,
No,
right.
he's tied with Fielder in home runs at 38.
Oh, it's average that he's down?
He's average. He won't win average. He'll win RBIs.
All right, well, regardless, you're looking at a guy who did 330, 35 homers, 125 RBI, all the defensive range you could ask for, all the athleticism you could ask for, stole a few bags. The only thing against Kemp is the fact that the Dodgers won't make the playoffs. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with Clayton Kershaw, who, we'll reserve that for the NL Cy Young talk. But I think it's one of those years where you can give it to a guy like Matt Kemp because you don't have anybody. You don't want Chase Utley with the Phillies.
Pujols isn't doing it.
You don't have Pujols having
Howard.
a Pujols type year. So I think it's a circumstance where Matt Kemp, by and large, was the best player in the National League this year.
Regardless
and he should
of
be
team.
rewarded for that. Yeah. And I think he probably will, based on the fact that you don't have Pujols slapping 50 bombs this year, and that type of thing.
So here's where we get into the most valuable talk. The Dodgers are third or fourth in the West right now. Which one? Do we know? Either or.
I would assume fourth.
And
the
the
Rockies
Brewers obviously
and
have won the
Giants.
National League Central. Where would the Brewers be without Ryan Braun?
I think they'd still win it.
Where would the Dodgers be without Matt Kemp? I mean, they would
Still not in the playoffs.
They would not be in the playoffs. I think the Brewers would be lower, would not have fared nearly as well, probably not have made the playoffs. In my opinion,
If you replace him with a suitable replacement, obviously ain't going to put up his type numbers, but
I completely agree with Drew that Kemp is
by
probably the best player statistically in the National League. But when you're not on a winning team, I have a hard time giving it to that player because his numbers aren't exponentially better than everybody else, in my opinion.
And okay, this is sabermetrically.
Oh!
Well, how sabermetric are you going to get?
Dirty word. I'm sorry to even bring it up.
We'll bleep that out.
Kemp-
We'll bleep it out.
Kemp is outstanding in
What's his
those
WAR?
sort of
What's
metrics
his
as
WAR?
well. His WAR is almost 10, which is
Which is really good.
Which is
Wins
very,
above
very good.
replacement.
What is that good
Where is
for?
Braun? Is he like 6,
WAR.
7?
What is it good for? Braun is about 6.5, 7.
So
We
yeah,
found
Kemp
our
leads the majors.
intro or our exit song.
So Kemp, essentially, if I have my sabermetrics, Bill James, correctly, is 3.5 wins, worth 3.5
Like the
wins
Pythagorean
more.
More than
theorem.
what Braun was statistically on the field. Yes.
So there you go.
So it's an interesting argument. It seems like historically it's trended more towards, well, if you're on a winning team. The last guy that took an MVP that was not in a race was Alex Rodriguez with the Rangers, 8, 9, 10 years ago. So this is something that doesn't come along as often as it maybe should, but we'll see.
Well,
and maybe Prince Fielder also steals some votes from Ryan Braun because he had a great year too.
Well, my big knock on Braun would be his mullety hair.
His mullety hair,
I don't dig it.
He's got pretty good lock, pretty good locks.
I'm not
Wavy.
saying he's not a good baseball player or a good human being.
Well, to me, in terms of MVP, I mean, I'll say obviously, I don't think you should have to be on a team in the playoffs per se. I mean, if you truly are really great, I don't have a problem with a team not in the playoffs or with a losing record winning it. But to me, if it's basically the same, I would go with the guy that's going to be in the playoffs over a guy that wouldn't.
Looking at the pitchers now, Clayton Kershaw, I believe, runaway favorite. Anybody else on your list? I know Ian Kennedy for the Diamondbacks.
I think it's
120 plus games.
Yeah, I think it's a four-man race. I think you have Kershaw, you have Cliff Lee, you have Roy Halladay, and then you have Ian Kennedy. The knock on Lee is going to be his wins. I think he only had like 15 or 16 wins. Same with Halladay. Neither of those guys won, a bundle of games. Like Kershaw's a 20-game winner for a team that's not going to be in the playoffs. 21-5, like a 2.27 ERA. 215 innings, 245 Ks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more you can ask for. Lefties hitting the best left-handed hitters in the world are hitting $170 off Clayton Kershaw this year. So I think that really, again, it's the same. It's strange that it's the same team in the same scenario where you have a guy who had such a great year, but just because his team's not in the playoffs, might lose it just because you have guys like Halladay and Lee and Ian Kennedy is on a team that's going to make the playoffs too.
I would like to know the last time that happened. 2 guys, MVP, Cy Young, no playoffs.
That's a great question.
I'll look
That's
it
a
up.
great
That is a
question.
good question.
I would say,
Three
for
good
some
questions.
reason,
That means that's a great question.
that means it's
That's a
great.
really good question.
Triple
3
great
goods
question.
make
That's a really good
great
question.
question of the week. Anyway, I would say
But he's not a bad person.
he's not a bad person.
It's just the hair. Just
It's the
seriously.
hair that doesn't do it for me. For some reason, am going to treat the Cy Young Award differently than I would treat the MVP. Because I think Clayton Kershaw is not directly responsible for the Dodgers.
because he plays only once a week.
No, I don't
It's
think
every 5 games.
I don't think he's responsible for the Dodgers' inability to score. Or to
Well,
give him
obviously.
run support.
Yeah.
And I think
Even then, 21 wins. It's
21
incredible.
wins.
And
I
Kemp
think,
isn't responsible for the other pitchers not named Clayton Kershaw. That are
and
not
for the
giving
same
them starts.
reason, I said Braun was better than Kemp is the same reason Kershaw is better than everybody else because he's set. Who's the next closest guy? 3-4 wins away. ERA maybe.
I mean, Kennedy,
Half
he's
of-
right up there
Kennedy
with
has
wins.
20
He had-
wins too.
Okay,
And
well, but I mean, I think Kershaw has kind of put himself out there as the best candidate, and regardless, 1 out of 2 isn't bad for the Dodgers, in my opinion.
You're right. And I would say
If only they could win 1 out of 2.
it's a scenario where if Ian Kennedy wins it, he had a great year by all means. I wouldn't argue that. Statistically, not as great as Kershaw, but okay, the Diamondbacks, Kirk Gibson's Diamondbacks are in the playoffs. Okay, whatever, I understand.
His wins mean more.
His wins mean more, I guess, when it comes down to it. But if Halladay or Lee will win it, and I don't think they will because they'll split some votes, I would maybe have a little bit of a bone to pick with that because I don't think they were as good as 2 other guys in the National League.
Ian Kennedy's wins mean more, but they count the same.
I know.
They do.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy? How 21 wins for one guy is exactly the same as 21 wins for another.
That's why baseball's crazy.
Unbelievable.
The American League has the same muddled mess. Cy Young, Verlander, no doubt. Who finishes
tough to
second?
argue
Who finishes
against that.
second?
I'll be curious to see if Verlander wins unanimously.
I think he should.
It could be the first time that's happened in a while. I can't remember the last. Has there ever been a unanimous? I want to say Roger Clemens did one year.
That's why I think. No, who finishes second in this
Do
race?
we honestly
Probably
care who
Jared
finishes
Weaver.
second?
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
Jared
probably Weaver, yeah.
Because the Angels were also kind of an independent race.
For betting purposes, perhaps.
Who else sticks out?
Switching to the MVP now, you put Verlander in that discussion.
Well, Joe Mauer? Oh.
Oh. I think
Nice.
they're.
Oh,
He has pneumonia! And a litany of other things that can't be fixed.
Ever.
Ever.
no cure.
You have some guys. Who do you like for MVP? Curtis Granderson, Ellsbury for Boston.
You got Curtis Granderson, 40 home runs, that power left-handed swing slugger for the Yankees who won 97 games this year. That's his case. Ellsbury, career year, 320, 30 home runs, 35, 40 stolen bases, great defense. I think as it stands right now, and then who hasn't been talked about in this whole thing? Miguel Cabrera, who hit 330.
What about
On-base percentage 450, slugging 650, 700.
what about Alex Avila for a dark horse?
Now that is a dark horse, but I think he was the best catcher in the American
Yeah.
League this year. Absolutely. Can't say the same for our side-burned
$23 million
superstar,
man.
$23 million man over in Minneapolis.
He does have nice Head and Shoulders commercials, though.
He does though. Great looking hair.
I love the commercial where he sings.
I hate that.
The Minnesota, more to explore.
I
Minnesota?
live,
More
and
to
I live in
explore.
that state.
You poor schmuck.
Poor man.
Poor man.
And then there was that compelling case with Justin Verlander, who apparently had such a great year that he should win both the awards. I disagree with that.
I agree with I disagree with your disagreement.
Okay.
Let him finish,
Okay.
and
I
then
will.
Travis will come right in.
We'll go
main-
first, and then we'll let Travis attempt his
yes.
coup de grace.
I'll play
Go
I'll
ahead.
play the role of Mayweather. You play Ortiz dap. Give me some dap.
All right. Well,
No,
Boom,
you're going
boom.
to be the Mayweather.
Jackson,
He's
who's
going to be
merchant?
the
Who's
Larry
merchant? Who's merchant?
I
Anyway.
think you could. I don't know.
Okay,
Hard to say.
round one, Verlander. Okay, great year. 235, 240 innings
24 and 5.
24 and 5, 24 wins.
A
That's
whip
excellent.
of .9.
That's good.
Whip of sub one.
good.
Kershaw had a sub one whip too.
Whip it.
Whip it good. Strikeouts.
250.
I mean, the guy
$250,000.
the guy in your rotation who's going to end a losing streak, who's going to keep a winning streak going, who's going to show up, who's going to pitch game one in the ALDS, and your team's going to have a great chance of winning. However,
Give it to me.
really my only knock is that baseball has created this. They have the baseball awards. You have the Cy Young for pitchers. Are hitters ever considered winners for the Cy Young?
No, because it's an award for the pitchers.
Exactly.
I was going to bring. I thought of
Michael
that
Kadire.
earlier today.
For his inning of relief.
No, 0 ERA. I
You
mean,
should get the Rolaids Relief Award.
Yes.
my one shining argument is the fact that
But-
Verlander's going to have his award.
But does MVP say pitchers are not allowed?
It does not. It does not.
Do you buy into the fact that pitchers go once every 5 days?
You know what? I don't include that in my argument. The fact is Verlander accounted for something like 858 plate appearances.
969.
And a player is going to have, if they play mostly every day, are going to have 650, 700.
Yep.
So I think Verlander has the impact of an everyday
Absolutely.
player.
Why is that not brought up more? Because that was my argument. Why is that not brought up more?
Well,
Verlander,
because it is the fact that he accounts for these plate appearances,
Okay.
but he's on the field every 5 days. He's not.
would you rather have Verlander has 100% control of the other team's offense for the most part, let alone the defense, but he has 100% control every 5 days.
Well, he never does because you got your defense.
But as far as he goes, he's 100% out there every 5 days. Or you have a guy that has 5 plate appearances, makes a couple plays in the field, who has maybe a 5% impact all the time, instead of 100% a fifth of the time.
Well, again, I'm not the one who I'm not sitting here saying Verlander, it's unjustifiable for him to win just because he's only on the field once every 5 days. I think Verlander, it's fine to. I don't think you should downgrade him based on that fact.
Good.
I just don't think pitchers should win MVPs. Now, granted, it's a semantics issue. A most valuable player. Well, that includes everybody, right? Everybody's in the running for that. Well, yeah, that's true. I think you have the Cy Young, you have the pitchers award. Take it, enjoy it, and somebody in the American League. Because there's been candidates who've had great years this year.
But this is a year where there's nobody that stands out.
I disagree, though. And I think if the Blue Jays were a playoff contender, you'd be looking at Jose Bautista and saying, there's your winner, with 45 home runs and all those walks, and plus he hit over 300. So I sort of disagree with the fact that it's a weak batch of MVP candidates. It maybe not as strong as maybe in past years, but there's been weaker ones even in recent history. Pedroia in 09, Morneau in 06. He had a great year. Did he hit 50 jacks? No, he didn't. No. So I just think this year isn't abnormally weaker than others maybe in past history, as much as people think.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, Marcus.
All of that was good.
Oh, yeah?
I agree.
And he is a good person.
He is a good person.
He is a good person.
A couple nights ago, actually last night, we had somebody argue
Tuesday.
that Eric Gagne won the
Who was that?
He won the Cy
did.
Young
As a
closer. He won the Cy Young. And this person argued that he should have been in consideration for the MVP
I'm sure he got votes too.
And I'm sure he did.
He may have finished top 10.
Using Travis's plate appearances to
Common
batters
sense
faced theory
argument.
and common sense, he equates for what?
A week of 50, 60 innings?
60 innings.
Well, I think he had 50 plus saves, so he's probably in the 70 innings
70
range,
innings, yeah.
which is basically a week.
And
7-8 games worth of baseball.
Mr. Verlander pitched how many innings this year?
251.
251.
Not that a closer is going to be in the race this year, but how could you ever possibly consider a closer for MVP? They're responsible for one inning.
The moral of the story
for a third of the game
is that the voters screw up. That's absolutely the reason.
I think hypothetically the only way you could get me to get excited about a closer winning would be as if a team won 120 games and he had 120 saves
That would be
on the
amazing.
season.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
It's like, wow, that guy doubled the save record.
Yeah, well,
in one season.
Gagne's not even the first closer to win a Cy Young. Eckersley did it
In
back in the late
92.
80s.
We looked that
was
up.
we
looked it up.
Nice.
Dustin Verink, LLC.
Different era. I think there was a time where kind of baseball and sports writers were sort of enchanted with the notion of a closer because it was still sort of new and it was getting established that this is an important part of a baseball team.
And they started recording saves in 1978, 1979.
That's correct, yeah.
So, yeah,
It's fairly new.
it's fairly new, but it's not new. We're in our fourth decade now with it, where I think
Yeah, but
Fifth decade.
the concept of having a roster, having a pitcher exclusively to close games, came a little bit after that. So it was back in the late 80s, early 90s. It was still kind of a new, oh, this is cool, this is important type thing at that time again. But I don't know why are we talking about Dennis Eckersley's Cy Young Award winner? I mean, it was just a side note.
Anyways, who's
Okay.
your MVP?
Okay.
my MVP pick
Hold on.
in the American
We all
League.
like Kershaw, NL,
Yes.
Cy Young.
Yep.
I like
Kershaw.
Kemp, MVP.
I like Kemp.
I'm Ryan Braun.
You're Brian Braun. Do you?
I'll go with Braun.
Okay. Verlander around the board.
Yep.
Verlander.
I like Verlander for MVP.
I like Ellsbury.
Curtis Granderson.
Okay.
I will also go with Verlander. This was the only reason I picked that.
Ellsbury if Red Sox make the playoffs.
Basically, with Verlander, all the reasons said already included that it is the most valuable player. I think,
And
that
he
if
is a player.
If he did not pitch for the Lions, the Tigers,
They'd be at least
not
1 and
only
2.
would they not be 10 games ahead of the Indians or whatever they are ahead right now, I don't think they would be in the playoffs without him. And that most awards, now kind of comparing this to the Heisman, although that's not an MVP, that's technically a most outstanding player. But just because you don't play the position that someone normally says, if you still are the most valuable player or the most outstanding player, I don't think it should make a difference then.
The Heisman is the guy that gets paid the most.
Sometimes.
Is that what it's been all along?
That's what I base my vote on.
Wow.
Who was the first Heisman Trophy winner? I think got $25.
I believe he had to
It just kind of jumped up from
work in
there.
a packing plant the next
Well, he got
day.
stock in Andrew Carnegie's steel
And
too, though.
boy,
That
did
ended up really working out
Yeah,
well.
that was a good deal. My rationale, if anybody cares, for the Granderson thing is
Coming up next.
who expected him to have 40 home runs this year? I did.
I always thought he was kind of underrated.
If he can't,
He sneakily had power.
if he can't win the MVP award, I think he should win the most surprising player of the year award.
Most improved?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Come back next week for our most improved player of the year awards and all that stuff. Coming up next here on the Sports Lounge, we're going to get into college football and talk about how expensive is too expensive to have a vehicle to be driving around in Bama. Coming up next.